Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Stratford Live TV with Joe Draper
and Edward Lowe. We've had a really busy couple of weeks again. We've been here, there and everywhere talking to different businesses and getting some really good topics to discuss.
Indeed, and you'll notice this week I am in black.
You're in slimming black.
Do you know that was why I was in black?
I got a feeling it was because of that reason.
Yeah, you're in
I thought I'd be a bit more
I
anti-establishment.
Yeah.
Even though Jack keeps getting
Gives
all
a
of the
complex,
worst
doesn't he?
angles possible, I'm not going to give in yet.
Yes, indeed.
We'll wait until I have a breakdown and then I'm in black.
Is yours lime?
It's lime, citrus, I'd say.
Citrus.
Citrus, I'd say citrus.
We'll go with citrus.
Yeah, it's a bit more of a mix. So this week we've been round to a very local business and we've been to meet Simon at Fine and Dandy. So you can get to know what they do in the shop, not just the goods that you might have seen, but they've also got a bit of a background to the business as well with one particular line with their gift cards. In Ed's Stat Chat this week, he will be talking about a very current topic of the tenant fee ban, which actually came into fruition yesterday. Yeah. So I think he'll be answering a lot of questions that you'll be having on your mind and sort of really trying to get to the bottom of things there.
Yeah. That
will then flow into our buy-to-let deal. Ed's been showing some great properties, which I'm sure there's been a lot of swift movement on. Be surprised if they're still hanging around, to be honest. We'll have a home styling tip, very unique one. I think it is something really quite special.
Yeah.
First time I've definitely seen it.
Yeah,
so
it's a good one.
It's going to be really, really exciting. It's going to be great to hear what you think on that. We'll also be talking about events coming up in your area. Hi there, Simon. Good to see you. Thanks for taking part in the show and letting us come along and have a little chat with you.
No problem, Joe. Welcome to Fine and Dandy.
Thank you.
In case you don't know where you are, you're at the top of Henley Street, opposite the Jester statue next to Boston Tea Party.
Brilliant. So if anyone doesn't know where we are, that's where you can find us.
Absolutely, yeah.
What we'd like to know is, what do you really love about Stratford? What are your favourite things?
I think it's really hard to narrow it down to one thing because there's so many things about the town. It's obviously beautiful. We've got loads of historic buildings, great architecture. Particular favourite of mine, lots of great bars, lots of great restaurants, and of course we've got the River Avon running through it. So it's an amazing place.
Absolutely. So there's quite a lot of variety, really, isn't there? And there's lots of different things for different people.
Lots of things to attract people to the town.
Absolutely. And in terms of the people, what are your favourite things about the people?
I think I love the fact the town's got quite a cosmopolitan feel.
Yeah.
Because we've also got people living and working here from all over Europe, all over the world.
Yeah.
We've got lots of visitors that come here from all over the world. So it's got a really nice cosmopolitan feel to it.
And I think especially in terms of this location, you're going to get so many different kinds of people on a daily basis that you can sort of chat to and engage with.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's the main tourist street in the town.
Yeah.
And Henley Street, everyone comes here to see Shakespeare's birthplace. And it's almost like the gateway to Stratford-upon-Avon.
It certainly is, actually, because a lot of people will arrive here and they will also leave, which is probably a great spot for you as well, for all those last minute purchases.
The last shop on the street before they go, yeah.
Can I ask, do you think that online shopping has kind of affected your business, or have you found ways to combat that?
No, I mean, we've been in the town, for about 3 years now, and online shopping's not really affected us at all. The thing about Stratford is people come here, locals and visitors, for the experience of the town.
This is true,
So you get independent shops, independent retailers, independent restaurants and cafes.
Yeah.
So you come here for the experience rather than going online where you get no experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So no, it's not affected at all.
I think with the stock that you have in your shop, it is quite unique, and quite a lot of it's quite tactile, and those are sorts of things that, you know, you probably wouldn't sort of go out directly with a shopping list to get, but you've got some really unusual, quirky items. You probably don't realise until you see it that you need a wall-mounted rhino plant holder until you actually see one. Precisely, and then you know that you can't live without it. So tell me about some of the things in the shop.
So that's exactly what John does. John goes around trying to find new products, different products, and his main aim always is to find products that aren't already in the town. Mm-hmm. So he looks at suppliers, goes to different shows, different fairs to try and find unique gifts and gifts for the home. We've got ladies' accessories at the front, and we also have a whole range of greeting cards which we design ourselves.
Brilliant,
made ourselves, and gifts for occasions like birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, etc. Yeah.
Excellent. So how did the card aspect come about? Was that just was it sort of accidental almost, or was it something that you'd pre-planned?
When I actually started making cards on more of an amateur basis about 10 years ago,
Yeah.
And we started getting loads of positive feedback from customers because all our cards are based on humour, so they're all
Indeed.
humorous quotes. So it's really nice to see customers coming in, picking up a card and giggling away and showing their friends as well.
Yeah.
So we've actually expanded the range of cards. We now have 3 full racks of them.
Great.
They are really popular, yeah. And you can't buy them anywhere else.
Absolutely.
So, it's
So
great,
they are specific to you,
this shop,
and they are very you, aren't they? Because they have come from you. So it's
They
almost
have
like
indeed, yeah,
your
yeah.
sort of art in process, really.
Yeah.
So
it's our sense of humour.
yes, very much so. I think we can be sure of that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time today. We hope that everybody's sort of learned a lot more about Fine and Dandy. Do visit the store. Come in, see John or see Simon. They'll be happy to guide you around the stock and take a look.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Loved the interview there, Joe. I thought it was great. Really good insights into what their business is all about. It's great.
Yeah, it was great to have a chat with Simon. I think it really gave us a different aspect, especially the greetings cards. That's something that they actually do themselves. Really go in, read them. You will be in stitches, and it does give you a bit of an insight into the workings of their minds, which we'll leave you to come to a conclusion on that one.
I love the cards. I think I agree. I think they're great. I mean, you're quite funny. I'm not sure you always intend to be intentionally funny.
I think you find me more amusing when I'm trying not to be funny.
Yeah, because
Not necessarily
that comes on to
compliment.
really interesting, which happened off camera just earlier, which I think is quite good, which is what you were talking about, Michael Jackson and Billie Jean.
Oh,
and
yeah.
What did you just tell us, everyone, what you thought? I mean, I've got my own little embarrassing moment on that one as well, but let's just
Yeah,
get
that
Joe's
comes
first.
close.
I think so. Maybe not.
But to
quite
be
so
fair,
much.
I hadn't really thought about it to give it enough to sort of validate and think about it. But I always thought he said, Billie Jean is not my number, thinking that it was sort of code for, I don't know, for not your kind of person or something.
That took
But
me.
it's not as good. I think actually yours is funnier.
Yes, which I'm so confident that I'm right, even though I've seen the lyrics written down in paper. I'm still
You're
sure.
still confident,
I'm sure
even
mine
though-
is right, which I'm pretty sure it says Janice is not the one, rather than what is it, Jack? The son is not my. The boy is not my son.
Yeah, this the boy.
If you listen to it, I'm sure it says Janice not the one, and Janice is not the one. I'm sure it is.
The kid is not my son.
That's it. The kid is not my son.
The kid.
I
I think we can deduce from this, even though it's in black and white, Ed still thinks
it's a chance.
that his version is correct.
There's a chance.
There
I
is
know
a
which one
chance.
I'll be singing in the car. That's all I'll say. Right?
Private concert.
Yes, indeed. And anyway, if you have any weird and wonderful adaptions of lyrics that aren't quite correct, please just feel free. Let us know.
Yeah,
and we
share
can
them.
see if we can trump Joe's number.
Number. Yeah, we can see if we can trump that. So now we're going to move on to your stat chat.
In this episode Stat Chat, we're going to be talking about the tenant fee ban, which, as you can see by our lovely snazzy graphic, and by the way, no expense has been spared here. We've got this little remote clicker, and now we have flashing graphics. Who knows what's next? But in all seriousness, because this is quite a serious topic, as you'll see when we go through the slides. So the ban came in yesterday. Now it's really important, I think, because when I've been speaking to quite a few landlords over the last couple of weeks, not many of them are fully up to speed with the consequences of this. So it is quite important to know. So what I've done is broken it down into bits to give you hopefully all the information in a couple of minutes. So who does the ban apply to? Well, it applies to lettings agents and private landlords. Essentially, if you've got an short hold tenancy, pretty much it applies to you. So what can you no longer charge for that you used to? This is by no means the full list, but I've tried to pick out the examples here of things that people probably are more familiar with. So for example, you've got guarantor forms, credit checks, inventories, cleaning, referencing, garden services, things around carpets and defleeing, great word that. But that is not the full list, but they're the ones that are probably the key. So it's probably worth taking some time just to read that because they will be applicable, and those you can no longer charge for them, basically. They are now gone. So what can you charge for? Well, clearly the most important one is the rent, so good news, you can still charge for that. However, it can't be tiered, so some people have suggested that they're going to tier the rent to offset against these losses. You can't do that. It has to be a consistent rent. Deposits have changed as well. You can now only take 5 weeks rent up to a £50,000 per year rental, and 6 weeks where it's over £50,000. There is a holding deposit that you can now take, which I'll go through in a bit more detail, but essentially that's where somebody comes along. You can then take 1 week's rent as a holding deposit, and if there are any changes within tenancy, you are entitled to make a charge of that, but that is capped at £50. So the other things you can charge for: early termination. If somebody leaves for their term, then you are entitled to charge for that. Again, clearly the other things you'd expect, like utilities, communication, TV license, council tax, all that stuff, they're still there to pay that. And there's a late payment there as well that you can charge for, and key change, or lost key rather. So there are a couple of things, but it's tightened up a lot, and there are still strict things, particularly around the late payment and banking charges. So what is this holding deposit? Well, as I said earlier, essentially if a tenant comes to you and they want to take the property, then they you can take 1 week's rent in advance to hold that property for them whilst you're going through the referencing process. Now, if they decide against that, or you think they're not right, then you are entitled to keep that, but there are again strict conditions to that. So that's only if you reasonably believe the information they've given you is incorrect, or if it's you don't think they're a suitable tenant. Now again, that's a bit of a grey area if I'm being honest, so you've got to be really clear on that one. If they provide anything false or misleading to you, and if they fail the right to rent checks. So in that situation, you are allowed to keep that holding deposit. Downside is if they decide to not go for the property, you have to return that to them in a set period of time. So what does it mean for existing tenancies? Well, there's a little bit more leniency around that. So if you have a tenancy that's at place at the moment, as in i.e. for the 1st June yesterday, you can continue on the same terms that you were, but you've got to change them before the 31st of May 2020. So for example, if you had a checkout fee and renewal fees, then that's okay, but past that date, clear date, 31st of May 2020, they're gone as well. So there's a bit more leniency around existing tenancies. This is the big one, and I think this is where people really do need to sort of sit up and take some notice, because there's some severe penalties around this. So as you can see, it really tiers in quite a significant way. So where there has been a breach, the money will go back to the tenant, and they can claim that back via the county court. You will be charged any interest on any late payments, any payments that are due back as well, but these are the two big ones. First time, you get a bit of a slap on the wrist and you'll get a pretty significant fine of £5,000. If you do it again, it's game over basically. You can be fined as much as £30,000 along with a banning order. So it's just not worth the risk. It's why it's so important to get this out in the public domain. If you weren't aware of it, you need to get yourself up to speed quickly. It is available to get it. We can obviously provide further information if you want it, but those two things should be enough to make you sit up and go, okay, I need to take this pretty seriously, particularly that one. The other thing as well, which is so important, Section 21s. Unless you have basically got everything squared off and back with regards to the fees, you can't actually serve a Section 21. So if you want to get your property back, you've got to make sure that all the fees are returned, otherwise you're not going to be able to do it. Everything else around the Section 21 does stay the same, but particularly if you've got anything outstanding in fees, then you won't be able to get people out. So it's quite important. Clearly there's a lot more detail to this, but as you can probably appreciate through just seeing this little highlight reel now, that there are some serious consequences to it. If you have got any further questions on it, please get in touch. We'd be glad to have a chat.
I think that was a really interesting stat chat, Ed. There are quite a lot of very important factors there. So obviously there are serious sort of implications. So it is really important to make sure that you do know your rights, but also you're working within the legal parameters. So I think what we'd say is, if you're not sure about anything, make sure you're going to the correct source. Feel free, contact Ed. He'll be happy to sort of answer any questions for you, because it is something that you can't really risk to getting wrong.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It really isn't. I mean, as you saw one of the slides there, fines can go up to £30,000, so it just isn't worth it. I think it's one of those things, it's not under the radar as such, but I'm not convinced as many people know it as they should. So I think it is well worth, hopefully that section will just highlight the importance of going out and spending some time researching it, so you've got your legislation up to speed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Warwickshire landlords, I am out and about hunting down the very best deals from around the area, beavering away just for you guys, because I'm all about giving. And today, well, what a special one we've got. I think probably out of all the ones I've done so far, I think this ranks up as number one. So why is that? Well, I'll go through that in a second, but two big reasons. But first off, where am I? Well, it's the B word again. No, not Brexit, but Bidford. Yes, this pretty little village just outside Stratford. Today I'm on Tower Hill, and behind me I think is an absolute belter of a property. It was so good I almost didn't want to do it because I was going to buy it myself, so I just very much recommend you get in quick, because I don't think this one is going to hang around. So what is it? Well, it's a 3 double-bedroomed extended semi. They've gone into the attic, although it doesn't look official, so it's just an attic room rather than a bedroom, but they've also converted one of the rooms downstairs, so it now gives you 4 bedrooms, so 3 up, 1 down. It does need a little bit of work, but it's got great potential with it and a super plot. Now, interestingly enough, the most recent property that sold on this street was number 53, which sold for 218,000 back in December of last year. So, and that was a 2-bed terrace. So, admittedly, different era, because that was a character one. This is an ex-local, but even so, I think this is just a great buy to let. I mean, I think there are 2 things here. Firstly, you can improve the property to improve the capital appreciation. If you remember the last time we looked at one, it was a similar situation. I think this one even eclipses that. You've also got the yield. So this is currently on the market for offers in excess of 165. It does need a little bit of work. It's got no upward chain, so you should be able to get this deal done quite quickly. Even if you were to pick it up at the full asking price, it should rent for around £800 per calendar month, which is going to give you a 5.8% yield, which is still good. But not only that, I do generally believe you can significantly increase the capital appreciation on this property, because I think it's pretty priced exceptionally well, so I don't expect it to hang around. So I really would recommend you get in contact with the agents, which is Nikki Homes. Give them a shout, get in there, otherwise I'll buy myself.
Thanks for the buy-to-let deal. Obviously, we have spoken on our previous episodes about how property is really holding its value in terms of investment. I know that we've also spoken today about the tenant fee ban, so there are lots of things to think about, but I think probably if you're looking at the bigger picture and looking in terms of a longer term investment, obviously property is still the one to go for, but there are just things to consider and make sure you've got your cards straight.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, this sector of the market is getting heavily punished at the moment with stamp duty rises, tax is becoming less efficient, and obviously then you've now got this on top of it. So I think it goes without saying that it's not perhaps as good as it used to be, but I think when you look at the core elements of it in terms of the capital appreciation and the yield, as we said when we look back at the previous chat and you compared it to building society, gold, it really does still stand firm as a good solid investment for the long term. So I think probably the way to conclude is don't let that put you off. You know, I think that there's still some good deals about. It still is proven to be a very good investment.
Yeah. So now we're going to move on to our home styling tip, which we're really excited to show you. As we mentioned, neither of us have actually ever seen it before, so I think you're going to be pretty impressed.
So a little confession to make here. We were supposed to be on location, but unfortunately we got let down. So, oops, computer says no. Yeah, sadly we weren't allowed to do the filming as we expected. So what do you do in all these circumstances? Well, you refer to Google, of course, because clearly that is the best next thing. So this tip I think is a great one. It's a really interesting thing that you can put in your properties. So essentially what it is, you have these glass screens, so they have a degree of opacity to them. Basically it uses an electrochromatic technology which puts a current into it. So it starts like this, then you flick a switch and voila, it then goes clear. So it changes the opacity of the screen, allowing it to obviously go from privacy to obviously open. The house that we were going to do it in actually had it in a downstairs bedroom. So when you walked into the hall, you'd see it, and then in front of you, you can then flip the switch so it'd either be opaque or clear, which was really cool, but unfortunately we haven't been able to do it. So this is probably, sadly, budget, next best thing. But another good use of it in this instance was, I presume, a hotel room, where you can see it's used in the bathroom. So it's actually a really clever use of technology, which just allows you to allow the vision of the room to go a bit further forward because you can see through it, but then you want to have the privacy. So that is our home styling tip of this week. Not quite as we would have liked it, but I think a pretty good effort nonetheless. I hope you'll agree that is a truly unique feature that neither Joe or myself had ever seen before, and I think when you see it in the flesh, it's or not see it, depending on
Not see it.
depends how it goes. But yeah, I mean, it's totally unique.
And it's such a conversation piece, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you probably wouldn't tell people about it when they arrive at your home for the first time, and then it's just
Oh yeah, you
unbelievable.
Can do that, can you? Like,
Oh yeah, yeah, just to maximise it.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. You can do that. What's that miming thing where you do the old?
Well, there's all sorts you could do, to be fair.
Well.
But anyway, right. So let's move on to events coming up.
It's a family show, Joe.
On Friday, I think you might all know Charlcote Park. It's a lovely Victorian manor house just outside Stratford, towards Stratford, near Wellesbourne. They're doing quite a unique night. It's actually a bat walk. So you go around with a professional, you get all of the bat detecting equipment. I'm not sure
Highly
about
technical. If you watch the first
very,
show, this is highly technical.
This is very technical.
Yeah.
So you get all of the equipment supplied. Obviously, you need to dress appropriately because it will be a little bit cold, I'd imagine. You start at 9:30.
You could go as Batman. What if you could track the bats? Get their old costume on?
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe.
I don't think there's any rules against wearing costumes.
They've got to be the Batman.
So you can wear what you
It's got
want.
to be the Batman.
Yeah, all sorts.
Yeah.
So, the event starts at 9:30, so it's this Friday the 7th. You do need to book tickets in advance, so that's through the National Trust, who manage Charlcote Park. Go onto their website. You will then have a guided tour of the grounds. Obviously, you're within the deer park itself as well. You'll learn lots about bats. Obviously, you'll be hoping to see them as well. And it will just be something a little bit different. Children can go, but you need to be over 8.
Interesting. Seeing a black animal in the dark.
So, yeah. Well, that's probably combated by the equipment.
Yes. It's like a Ghostbusters movie. You get the old.
Yeah, we'll have to find out more after it's happened.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed the show. That concludes episode 4. Thanks for watching, and remember to live, love, and invest.
See you next time.
Bye.